Welcome to The Writing Wasn't Very Good, my web series dedicated to helping you avoid the pitfalls of video game writing. Whether you're a writer, a designer, an executive, my series is dedicated to equipping you with the tools you need to create worlds and stories that have a measurable audience impact. And by measurable, I mean money. The key to success is simple. Emotional resonance is retention. If your players stay, your players pay. I don't mean that in some creepy, pickpockety capitalist sense. I just mean in a basic business sense. We are in this capitalist hellscape, and until we escape, we have to connect our worth to the bottom line. And retention causes engagement, causes people to stay, and people that stay are the people that pay. If it's live service, that's quite obvious. They're just there continuing to engage the product. Packaged goods, it does mean that they are more engrossed. They engage the product all the way through to the end. They talk about it. It gets higher Metacritic ratings because it's good as a narrative product. So everything in this series will map back to executing on this core principle of resonance. It's our North Star. Achieving it will not only ensure your personal success on the project as the narrative expert, but it will also ensure the success of your narrative-heavy game. Who are you? Who is the series made for? Well, the MFAs out there, the Masters of Fine Art and Creative Writing, will recognize all the principles that we discuss in this series. What they may not recognize is what they look like after they encounter the game development environment. Everyone else, welcome. You may not have been formally trained in narrative, but you are working on a narrative-heavy game. This series is everything I wish I had known when I started working on them in 2002. So who am I? Well, I'm Chuck Beaver. I'm a narrative director in video games, and I have been at the intersection of production and narrative since 2002. I've worked on a few titles you've probably heard of, and maybe a couple you haven't. James Bond, Nightfire, Everything or Nothing, From Russia with Love,
Shaken, not stirred.
The Simpsons game, Dead Space, 1, 2, 3, Sabotage for the iOS, Dead Space Ignition for Xbox Live, Extraction for the Wii, the animated features Downfall and Aftermath, the novels Martyr and Catalyst, the graphic novels Liberation and Salvage, Call of Duty, Advanced Warfare, Battlefield 1, League of Legends, Amy Hennig's Star Wars project, canceled fantasy IP at Scopely, and most recently I have co-founded a studio, Outer Haven, where we are working on Techno Inferno, a Disco Elysium style CRPG. What does all that add up to? Well, lots of scars, scorch marks, and hard-won lessons about how to bring meaningful, impactful narrative into video games. And I'm very excited to share these insights with you. Let's return to the premise and unpack our foundational concepts. Why do emotional resonance and player retention matter? Emotional resonance is the connection players feel when experiencing your game. It is the heart of storytelling. Emotional responses include anticipation, fear, hope, frustration,
Again.
relief, triumph,
Assemble.
loss, awe,
Step in front of a runaway train.
When players experience these emotions, they form a bond with your game. They care about the characters, the stakes, the world you have created, and they want more. Therefore, they come back, or stay, which in business terminology is the all-important goal of retention. These moments don't happen by accident. They require deliberate, cohesive construction across every element of the IP. The narrative, the art, the design, and the sound, all working in harmony towards this goal. Every point we'll cover in this series comes back to this point. The writing is bad because it did not create resonance, and could be the primary reason why your narrative-heavy game is struggling. As we said before, retention is simply keeping your players engaged, which means sales, player longevity, and ultimately profit. Here's why I find this topic so vital. I have spent an inordinate amount of time convincing companies that narrative directly impacts sales. The facts support it every time. Star Trek Fleet Command. This began as a typical 4X mobile strategy game focused on base building, resources, and combat, with a serviceable amount of narrative for a Star Trek offering, and good narrative at that. Since launch, story has become the top driver of player retention. This has shifted leadership's view of narrative to be one of the key priorities, reflected in both budget and scope. Kingdom Maker, also from Scopely. When we started improving the story there, players began rating the narrative as the most important and best rated feature in the focus test, which drove lapsed players to begin returning. Dead Space. Even in a mechanics-heavy space zombie shooter like Dead Space, story consistently ranked as one of the most important features in the game, which is why Motive doubled down on the story in the remake, giving Isaac a voice and embellishing many of the cutscenes. Focus tests consistently show that if story is offered, it quickly rises to the ranks of the most important feature in the game. This series will help you advocate for narrative craft within your organization as a key driver of success. You will learn to make the business case for investing in narrative, plan production workflows that prioritize story as a core pillar, and master the interactive narrative design tools that drive emotional engagement. We will back this up with real-world examples, case studies, and charts and graphs. Here's a preview of the core topics we'll be covering on our journey to master the art of crafting resonance in games. Randomness versus rules. Championing the invisible craft, aligning writing to business goals. Who's the right type of writer? Roadmap, order of operations. How to establish theme, tone, narrative genre. How to world build, a case study. How to establish characters, villains, the main story. Look at all this good stuff. All right, that wraps up our introduction of the series. If this sounds like your thing, like and subscribe, and we will be heading into the details next.